What would you do if the happiest moment of your life was secretly built on a ticking clock of sacrifice, a gleaming set of keys, a feast prepared with devotion, a mother's blessing over a warm, quiet home? Today, CEO Jack, his wife Tu Tien, and mother Ly stand inside the doorway of their dream house, lighting incense to welcome peace, fortune, and long-awaited stability into their lives. On the surface, it is a triumph, a family finally safe from the harsh storms of the past. But beneath the celebratory smiles and the fragrant smoke of the altar lies an uneasy tension, because to build this sanctuary, someone had to pay a price they never admitted to. And as Jack reaches for his phone to invite Uncle Dung over to share their sacred meal, an unexpected knock at the gate threatens to shatter the fragile peace they just prayed to protect. The golden late afternoon light spills across the polished floorboards of the new house, catching the gentle drifting smoke of 3 burning incense sticks. Mother Ly steps back from the altar, her weathered hands clasped loosely over her apron. Her eyes are bright with unshed tears as she gazes at the simple frame holding a photograph of their ancestors. For years, her small family had drifted, struggling through financial ruin, cold rental rooms, and sleepless nights where every rustle of the wind felt like a threat. But today, they finally have a roof that belongs to them. Jack stands beside her, his shoulders broad, his tailored suit jacket draped over the back of a wooden dining chair. As a CEO, he is used to boardroom negotiations, high-stakes decisions, and commanding respect from hundreds of employees. Yet, in this room, standing next to his mother and Tu Tien, the sharp edges of his corporate authority soften completely. He rests a hand gently on Mother Ly's shoulder, feeling the slight tremor of her breath. "We made it, Mom," Jack says quietly, his voice low and steady. "No more moving, no more landlords standing at the door demanding rent." Mother Ly presses her lips together, nodding quickly as she wipes a stray tear from her cheek. "I only ever prayed for a safe place for you two. A place where you don't have to carry the weight of the entire world alone." Across the room, Tu Tien sets down a heavy porcelain bowl filled with steaming broth onto the long dining table. The spread is modest but deeply intentional. Sticky rice, boiled chicken, fresh herbs from the local market, and sweet fruit arranged carefully on red lacquer plates. She wipes her palms on her apron, her eyes lingering on Jack. She knows better than anyone the hidden exhaustion behind his confident posture. She knows the late nights he spent hunched over financial balance sheets, pushing himself to the absolute limit so he could buy this house for his family. "Everything is ready for the housewarming meal," Tu Tien says, offering a soft, reassuring smile that instantly grounds the room. "The ancestors have been honored. Now we just need to feed the people who helped us get here." Jack smiles back, pulling a polished smartphone from his pocket. "I'll call Uncle Dung right now. He promised he'd come over the second we finish the ceremony." He dials the number, placing the phone to his ear as he walks toward the wide front window, overlooking the cobblestone courtyard. Outside, the old iron gate sits slightly ajar, framing the quiet village road beyond. But as the phone rings in his ear, Jack notices something unusual. The call goes straight to voicemail, a rare occurrence for Uncle Dung, who always answers on the first ring whenever Jack calls. Jack frowns slightly, lowering the phone. That's strange. His line went straight to automated recording. "Maybe he's already on his way," Mother Ly suggests, adjusting the arrangement of flowers on the altar. "You know how your uncle is. Once he sets his mind to stepping out, he leaves his phone on the kitchen counter and forgets it entirely." "I'll step outside to check the lane," Tu Tien says, her keen intuition sensing a faint shift in the room's energy. He might be carrying those heavy jars of homemade wine he mentioned yesterday. She steps out onto the veranda, the cool evening air kissing her skin. The smell of burning wood and damp earth hangs heavy in the air. As she walks down the 3 low stone steps toward the main gate, her footsteps fall into a steady rhythm. But halfway across the yard, she stops dead in her tracks. Standing just outside the rusty iron gate is not Uncle Dung with a smile and a jug of wine. It is a tall, shadow-draped figure standing perfectly still in the dim light of the street lamp. The person is holding a heavy leather envelope against their chest, their face obscured by the low brim of a dark hat. Tu Tien's heart takes a sudden, sharp dip. "Hello?" she calls out, her voice polite yet cautious. "Can I help you?" The figure doesn't answer immediately. Instead, they slow walk toward the gate, the faint sound of leather shoes dragging across the gravel echoing through the quiet yard. When the figure finally steps under the warm yellow light of the doorway, Tu Tien's breath hitches in her throat. It is not a stranger. It is a man from Jack's past, an old legal consultant who handled the painful liquidation of Jack's previous business 3 years ago. "Tu Tien," the man says, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. "Is Jack inside?" "He is," Tu Tien replies, instinctively taking a half step back, positioning herself between the gate and the front door. "We are celebrating our home offering today with family. If this is about business, please come back to the office tomorrow." "This isn't business," the man says softly, holding up the thick leather envelope. "This is about the deed to this house and the heavy debt Uncle Dung took on 6 hours ago to make sure Jack's transaction cleared." The room inside is quiet, filled with the rich aroma of cooked rice and lemongrass. Jack is setting 3 small glasses on the table when he hears the sudden, sharp scrape of footfalls outside, followed by the low, urgent murmur of voices. He stops. The tone of Tu Tien's voice from the yard isn't her usual gentle cadence. It is tight, guarded, protective. Jack immediately sets the glasses down and moves toward the door. Mother Loie looks up from the stove, her brow furrowing in concern. "Jack? Is that Dung?" "Stay inside for a second, Mom," Jack says calmly, though his pulse begins to accelerate. He steps out onto the porch, just in time to see Tu Tien reaching for the leather envelope held by the lawyer. Jack's sharp eyes recognize the man instantly. The air between them instantly turns icy. "Mr. Vance," Jack says, his voice dropping into the cold, authoritative pitch he uses in corporate boardrooms. "What are you doing at my home?" The lawyer turns slowly, looking at Jack with a mixture of professional indifference and quiet sympathy. "I was instructed to deliver these documents directly to you before nightfall, Jack, by Uncle Dung's personal attorney." Jack steps down the stairs, placing his arm around Tu Tien's waist, pulling her gently behind him in a protective gesture. "Uncle Dung's attorney? What are you talking about?" "Uncle Dung is on his way here for dinner." "He won't be coming for dinner tonight, Jack," Mr. Vance says plainly. "He's currently sitting in a private bank office in the city, finalizing the transfer of his personal farmland." A heavy, suffocating silence falls over the courtyard. The gentle rustle of leaves overhead sounds suddenly deafening. "What did you just say?" Jack's voice is barely a whisper, but it vibrates with intense tension. "To secure the remaining title deed for this property without triggering your old business liabilities, a third-party guarantor was required to post physical collateral," Vance explains, pulling a stack of stamped papers from the envelope. "You thought your bank loan was approved purely on your current company's valuation. But the bank flagged your old bankruptcy filing at the last minute. The deal was going to collapse yesterday afternoon." Jack stares at the white papers held in the lawyer's hands. His vision blurs slightly as the words on the top page come into focus: "Collateral Guarantee Agreement and Title Transfer Authorization." Uncle Dung step in. Vance continues quietly. He put up the deed to his home, his orchard, and his remaining land as security. If your new firm experiences even a single quarter of default, his property is liquidated automatically. He signed it this morning so you could hold your housewarming ceremony today without knowing. Tu Tien covers her mouth with her hand, a gasp escaping her lips. No. Uncle Dung's farm? That land has been in his family for 3 generations. It's all he has left of his parents. Jack stands frozen, the cold truth crashing over him like an ice-cold wave. The house he thought he had earned through his own strength, the pride he felt standing next to his mother at the altar, it wasn't just his victory. It was built on the silent, terrifying risk taken by an old man who loved him enough to gamble his entire life's work in secret. Why didn't he tell me? Jack demands, his fingers clenching into tight fists at his sides. I would have waited. I would have postponed buying this house. I would have rented for another 5 years before letting him risk his land. Because he knew you would say exactly that. A quiet, weary voice speaks from the shadows near the open gate. Everyone turns sharply. Standing by the wooden gatepost, holding a simple brown paper bag tied with red string, is Uncle Dung. His clothes are slightly rumpled from a long bus ride from the city center, his worn leather sandals covered in gray road dust. His face looks older under the dim yellow street lamp, lined with deep creases of exhaustion, but his eyes are warm and steady. Uncle Dung. Jack breathes, stepping forward quickly. Uncle Dung steps through the gate, holding up a small hand to stop Jack from speaking. He walks slowly toward the porch, looking at the bright lights of the new house, then down at the lawyer standing in the yard. I told you to leave those papers at my attorney's office, Vance, Uncle Dung says with a faint, tired smile. You always were too prompt for your own good. I have a legal duty to deliver executed copies to the primary beneficiary, Mr. Dung, Vance replies, though his tone softens slightly as he looks at the old man. Uncle, tell me this isn't true. Jack steps directly into Dung's path, his voice trembling with a rare, raw vulnerability. Tell me you didn't sign your land over to the bank for this. Uncle Dung sets the paper bag down on the wooden bench near the porch steps. Inside, 2 glass jars of homemade rice wine clink softly against each other. He looks Jack straight in the eye, not as a CEO, not as a powerful man, but as the young boy he helped raise after Jack's father passed away. Your mother has spent 15 years moving from one damp, cold house to another, Jack, Uncle Dung says softly, his voice gravelly, yet filled with unwavering love. She saved every coin she ever earned to put you through school. And you worked yourself to the point of collapse to rebuild your life after your first company failed. You think I was going to let a piece of paper from a bank bureaucrat destroy this day for your family? It's too big of a sacrifice, Uncle, Jack shouts, the emotional dam inside him finally breaking. If my company takes one wrong step, you lose everything. I can't live in a house that carries the threat of your ruin. Tu Tien steps forward, tears streaming freely down her face now. She reaches out, gently taking Uncle Dung's calloused, weathered hand into her own. Uncle Dung, Jack is right. We cannot accept this. We will pack our things right now. We will cancel the purchase agreement. We cannot let you do this. From the top of the porch steps, the screen door opens with a soft creak. Mother Loy stands in the doorway. She has heard every word. Her face is pale, her hands shaking slightly against her apron, but her eyes carry a profound, solemn clarity. She walks down the steps slowly, her gaze fixed entirely on her brother-in-law. Dung, she says quietly. Uncle Dung looks down at the ground, unable to meet her eyes for the first time all evening. Loey, don't be angry with me. It's done. Why did you do it without telling me? Mother Loey asks, stopping right in front of him. Because you would have stopped me. Uncle Dung replies softly. And for 20 years, I watched my brother's family suffer while I had little to give. When Jack was a boy, I couldn't help him pay his tuition. When your roof leaked during the monsoon, I only had enough money to buy a plastic tarp. Now, I am an old man. My land is just dirt and trees. But this house is your peace. If my dirt can protect your peace, then it has finally served a real purpose. Mother Ly doesn't scream. She doesn't cry out. She simply steps forward and wraps her arms around the old man's neck, burying her face into his shoulder. Uncle Dung freezes for a fraction of a second before gently wrapping his strong, calloused arms around her, patting her back with steady, rhythmic comfort. Jack turns away, wiping his face with the back of his hand, his chest heaving with silent, painful sobs. Tu Tien places her hand on Jack's back, leaning her head against his shoulder, sharing the overwhelming weight of the moment. The lawyer, standing quietly by the gate, clears his throat softly. The sharp legal atmosphere has completely dissipated, replaced by a deep, undeniable, reverent quiet. The agreement is already executed, Vance says quietly, holding the document toward Jack. However, there is a clause Uncle Dung insisted on adding before he signed. Jack turns back, his eyes red, looking at the lawyer. What clause? Vance opens the folder, pointing to a handwritten addendum at the bottom of the final page, initialed in blue ink. The guarantee automatically dissolves the moment Jack's company maintains its current reserve fund for 12 consecutive months, Vance explains. Uncle Dung didn't give his land away. He simply placed it beneath your feet as a temporary bridge. He trusted you to cross it, Jack. Jack looks from the legal document to Uncle Dung, who offers a small, knowing nod. You think I'd just hand my orchard over to a bank forever? Uncle Dung chuckles softly, though his eyes remain warm and misty. I know how hard you work, Jack. I know what kind of man you are. I'm not risking my land on a gamble. I'm placing a bet on my nephew. You have 12 months to make sure the bank never comes near my trees. Can you do that? Jack stands tall, wiping the remaining wetness from his face. The fear, confusion, and guilt that had consumed him moments ago transform into a fierce, absolute determination. He steps up to Uncle Dung, looking him dead in the eye, and takes the old man's hands in a firm, unshakable grip. I won't need 12 months, Uncle, Jack says, his voice vibrating with absolute certainty. I'll clear this guarantee in 6. I know you will, Uncle Dung replies quietly. Tu Tien wipes her tears, a radiant, tearful smile breaking across her face as she turns toward the open front door of the house. The warmth of the living room lights spills out onto the porch, inviting them back inside. The food is getting cold, Tu Tien says, her voice rich with emotional warmth, and the ancestors are waiting for us to finish the feast. Mother Ly takes Uncle Dung by the arm, refusing to let go of him. Come inside, Dung. You're sitting at the head of the table tonight. Only if I get to open that homemade wine. Uncle Dung smiles, picking up the brown paper bag from the bench. As the family walks